I'm Danielle. I'm a dietitian, and I'm going to talk today about um, race day fueling for both the half marathon and the marathon. So I have a slideshow. I'm going to share my screen.
That guy looks fast.
What is he? What'd you say?
That guy looks fast.
Fast. I just found a picture on the internet, so I have no idea who that is. That's okay. All right. So, all right. So, Space Coast Marathon, half marathon. I always like to just first put a picture of the course, and of course, when the start times are of both the marathon and the half marathon. It's really important to just get familiar with the course before you do the race, because as you can see, there are many different stops along the way with water and fueling stations, if you need any emergency bathroom stations, etc. So I recommend just kind of, not remembering where everything is, but kind of just having an idea of where, like how often you'll probably see a station in case you need to use them. Marathon starts at 6 a.m. and then half marathon starts at 15 minutes later.
Hey, Danielle, I think if I saw the map correct, it's about what, every 2 mile? You have the
about every 2.5.
You have the water and okay.
Let's go see. Yeah.
Yeah, somewhat closer than the others, but I would say maybe every 2 miles is a good. Okay.
Yep. I think they also listed out on the website too, as well.
Okay.
So you know exactly how often they are. But I think they're pretty often. There is enough for you to be able to stop in case you need to use them.
Okay. And the gels that shows there, those are, if I remember correctly from previous races, goo, right? That they distribute, they give away. Okay.
So number, post info. Do you know, Dave, what types of gels there are there?
No, but I would think it's goose.
It's on the website. I'll look it up after.
That's fine. I can look at that too, but I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I was just asking because I tried something different lately and it didn't sit well on my stomach. So I think I'll stick with goo.
Okay. Yeah, just always stick with what works for you, of course.
The cheapest that works.
So this is just a quick slide. I just always like to point out that, when you're an endurance athlete, it's not just going to entail running every day. It's going to entail strength training, cross training, and then of course, nutrition is like the fourth foundation of the sport. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the days leading into the race as well as race day, because I think that they are fairly important when you think about how your race day is going to go. So 2 to 3 days leading into your race is when you're going to want to start to make some changes into how you're eating. I think a lot of us have kind of heard of, a carb load, right? But we typically think of that one pre-race pasta dinner. So when you think about a half marathon and a marathon, that typically isn't going to cut it if you're looking to fully load your carbohydrate stores for race day. And if you've ever done a marathon and you've hit that wall with about 10K to go, thinking about doing a formal calculated carb load is probably going to be beneficial for you, because it does allow you to store more energy to prevent hitting the wall and fatigue that could be limiting your performance. So what research tells us is that it is beneficial to carb load for any race that's lasting over 90 to 120 minutes. So even if anyone's planning to do the half marathon, and you'll be out there for, let's just say, an hour, 40 minutes, then you can definitely benefit from this. So what is it exactly if it's not, just that pre-race pasta dinner? So what's important to understand in the most simplest form is that when we eat carbohydrates, they break down into molecules of glucose. That glucose is going to either be used immediately for energy, or it's stored as something called glycogen in our muscles, as well as our liver and brain. But during something like a half marathon or a marathon, your muscles are going to primarily be using those glycogen stores to function. So those glycogen stores allow us to stock up to about 2 hours of energy for racing. But once you get to that 90-minute mark, you're already going to be pretty low in those glycogen stores, and you will probably feel the effects by then. So carb loading basically just involves increasing your carbohydrate intake over the days prior to the race. And your goal here is to just completely fill those glycogen stores. And why you want to do this is because when those glycogen stores become depleted, again, it can cause fatigue, decrease in performance, etc. So if you are looking to, maybe get a personal best or just work to your highest ability until the end of that race, you're really going to want to start with those glycogen stores fully loaded.
And are you going to talk about a little bit about which forms of carbs are healthy? Well, I think maybe you're just going into it.
Maybe, probably, like what types of carbs?
Yeah, because I hear about like healthier carbs than others.
Yeah.
I like pasta, but if I load 3 days of pasta, I don't know if that's the best. So
Yeah. Well, I will probably go over that. And if you have any questions, you can definitely ask if I didn't go over it. So you can do a calculated carb load, but if you are new to carb loading, or you just don't want to do one, then my recommendation would be to just consciously increase the amount of carbohydrates you're eating in all of your meals and snacks for about 2 to 3 days before the race. So you're not necessarily increasing, overall calories in those 2 to 3 days, but you're just trying to shift your plate to have more carbohydrates and less protein, fat, and fiber. So, for example, if you typically have a smaller portion of pasta with a good portion of protein and vegetables like chicken or whatever, broccoli, then my suggestion is to maybe take away some or all of the vegetables, lower the amount of protein, and then maybe even add in some bread, or just increasing your pasta portion. So you're really just shifting your plate to include more carbohydrates, and a little bit less protein, and a little bit less fiber as well. If you're wanting to do a proper carb load, that's great too. What research shows is that in order to fully load those glycogen stores, we need to be eating either 10 to 12 grams of carbs per kilogram of body weight for 2 days, or 8 grams of carbohydrates per kilogram of body weight for 3 days. So if you're if you think that you're going to have some trouble increasing your carb intake, because it's not easy, eating that many carbs, then I would recommend doing less carbs for a longer period of time. So doing the 8 grams per kilogram times 3 days. So there's just an example there on the bottom right side of that screen for a 150-pound person. Obviously, if you weigh more than 150 pounds, then you need to eat more carbohydrates. And as you can see, for 12 grams per kilogram of body weight, that's like over 800 grams of carbs for 2 days, which is not easy to do. It's a lot of carbohydrates. So if you calculate yours and you see that you need over 800 grams, then I would recommend doing that 3-day one. So the next slide is kind of where I guess I go into what types of carbs. So here's just some tips when you're doing your carb load. So use carbohydrate foods that you're familiar with eating. In those 2 to 3 days, you don't want to choose a bunch of foods that are new to you. So nothing new around race day or on race day. So we want to focus on high carbohydrate foods that are not high in fat and not high in fiber. So, um,
Yeah, it's cold.
for example, choosing a baked potato instead of French fries. I know potatoes do have a little bit more fiber, but French fries are a little higher in fat. Taking a bagel in instead of a donut.
Yeah.
Pretzels instead of um, chips. You want to do things that are low in fiber. So I know that we're always told in society to eat really healthier carbs, right? Like whole grain pastas and whole wheat breads and things like that. But you really want to limit the fiber in those days because the fiber is what stays in your gut and will probably increase the chance that you have some GI issues leading into race day and on race day. So we want to, try to avoid that from happening.
Excuse me, are you going to share this presentation? Or
Yeah.
I'm just asking, if not, I'm going to take notes. But
I am recording it, so
oh,
I think we'll be emailing it to you. She'll be posting it to the Facebook page, but I can also send out like the slides as well.
okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
So like I was saying, any other time of course it's healthy to eat vegetables, but maybe just bring it down a few notches in those 3 days before race day.
Okay.
Oh, Dave.
I guess with just 3 of us, I don't need to raise my hand.
Yeah.
So the sodium, I take a lot because we've talked about it. But I've also found that I wasn't taking water. Like just water seems to help. If I am sodium loading all the way up to a race, do I need to be doing sodium during the race?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll go over sodium a little bit, but yeah, you need to do sodium as well. You can't, you're not going to store the sodium as you would like other things like some carbohydrates and things like that. So yes, because you're going to be losing it while you're racing.
So
You can hyperhydrate before with the sodium, but you'll still need to take some of
okay. Thank you.
Okay. So some other tips in this carb load, consider drinking some of your calories. So juices, lemonades, they're just easier to digest and pack in quite a bit of carbs with them. Focus on hydration. So when we create glycogen, this involves both carbs and water. So when you're carb loading, it is important to also drink extra fluids throughout the day. And sports drinks, those are helpful. And then lastly, like I said, you store water with carbohydrates. So you're probably gonna feel a little fluffy, they say, when you go into the race. But that's a good thing. You want to feel like you have like a little bit of extra fluff when you get to the race start. That just means you did the carbohydrate load right. And so just kind of stay off the scale in those days. Really affected by that. This is just an example day of eating for a carb load. I'm not really going to go through it, but it's there for you if you need it. Race day. So now I'm going to get into nutrition on race day. So I'm going to start with breakfast that morning of your race. If you've fueled well in those days leading into your race, then this morning breakfast is really just going to be a way for you to top off those glycogen or carbohydrate stores in your body. Again, if you don't know, our main fuel for endurance sports is carbohydrates. So I want you all to aim to have a good breakfast at least 90 minutes to even 2 hours before the start of your race. So for the marathon and half marathon, obviously, that's a super early race. They both start at about 6 to 6:15 a.m. So I encourage you to wake up early and get in, a good breakfast. I know it is early, but it does make a difference if you prioritize this. I think, we all start our runs pretty early in Florida, and I know you guys have been starting your long runs at 6 a.m. So getting used to eating that early, shouldn't be an issue, and it is important. So, I think last year I ate my breakfast at around like 4 o'clock or somewhere around that time. So what you eat is just going to be individual to your preferences. Some people prefer eating a larger meal a few hours before racing and having more time to digest. Other people might prefer a slightly smaller meal, about 90 minutes beforehand. So if you are going to do that 90 minutes to 2 hours beforehand, I would recommend topping off with a smaller carbohydrate-rich snack about 30 to 45 minutes before the start of the race. So usually this lands like right after your warm-up. And then what you choose to eat is also going to be a matter of personal preference. In general, you just want some easy to digest carbs with a little bit of protein. Avoid too much fat or fiber, just like I was talking about in the days before, because they do take longer to digest and can cause gastrointestinal issues. So you can do peanut butter and jelly on a bagel or an English muffin or toast, oatmeal with peanut butter and maybe a banana. You can do toaster waffles with syrup. There's so many different options. I know there's only a couple more weeks to go, but if you haven't already, just start testing things out in the morning of your long runs, especially to see what sits well the best. Again, the cardinal rule is to not try anything new on race day. So definitely just experiment in the next couple of weeks. And then with that the snack 30 minutes beforehand, it can be anything, anything that digests well for you. So gels are super popular here, but at the same time, if you're going to be taking in gels during the race, then you might want to consider something else, like some pretzels or graham crackers, or you can do like a half a banana or something like that, something that sits well. So now for during your race. So for races over 75 minutes, that's when you want to start fueling during the race. Because as I mentioned, our primary fuel source for running is carbs, and your body stores carbohydrates as glycogen. But at a certain point, you run out of that glycogen. So remember I said it'll last you about 2 hours. But at about 90 minutes, you're going to be running low. So that's why you want to take in carbs during the race, so you have some to use for immediate use. So the way that we measure our fueling during the race is by grams of carbs per hour, and you're going to need anywhere from 30 to 90 carbs per hour. There are people that even take more than that, up to like 120 grams per hour. Obviously, this is a very big range. I'm going to kind of break this down on the next slide. In my experience working with athletes, a lot of them are, taking in maybe a gel per hour, which is about 23 to 25 grams, which is just not enough to get you through the race. And where you land in that 30 to 90 is just going to depend on a lot of things. It's going to depend on how fast you're going, so your effort, your experience with fueling, the weather, how long you're running out there, and also what your goals are as well. So again, this is one of those things where you have to take the time to train your gut. Just like you train your muscles in your body, your gut is another muscle in the body, and you need to train it the same way. So practicing fueling more in those long runs especially is going to set you up for success. So to avoid getting like GI upset, I would recommend increasing every week during your long runs with no more than a 10 to 20 gram per hour, 10 to 20 gram per hour increase every week. But like I said, your gut is very adaptable, so it just takes time to train it to tolerate nutrition in the body. And then you can use pretty much anything you want to fuel your runs, as long as it's carbohydrates, right? So of course, gels and chews, and they make higher carb drinks. Those are created, right, to as sports nutrition products. So they're a little bit more expensive, but you get the benefit of it being just convenient, right? It's already in a little package for you. If you don't like to do that, you can do things like dates, and people use regular candy. Like if it's a cold day, you could probably use M&Ms or Swedish fish, or people use candy as well. It doesn't have to just be these products. So here's that breakdown. So basically just find your goal time on the left side of the table, and then you'll find how many carbs per hour I would recommend on the right side of the table. So it can be pretty overwhelming to think about how to get in that many carbs per hour, especially if you're starting from scratch. But this is why you practice and increase slowly to build your gut tolerance. The asterisks next to 60 grams and 60 to 90 grams, if you find that your sweet spot is there and that's where you want to land, the important thing to know is that you need to utilize different sources of carbohydrates. For example, glucose and fructose would be two different sources. That's exactly what Morton is made of, in addition to some other ingredients. And I think a lot of gels mix up the different types of carbohydrates. And this is going to help reduce the risk of GI distress in our running. I can get into more detail there, but it's too much. And then again, there's no one size fits all fueling plan. So, find the right products that work for you. I think you mentioned that you tried one that you didn't really sit well. So just always go to whatever works well for you. Just because someone else is using it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you. And then with a lot of gels, you need to take water with them to dilute them in your stomach so that they can be absorbed and transported throughout your body. So things like booze, you do need to take with water. So I would recommend taking a swig of water with your gel. Hydration. So I'm not going to go into this too much, but I think we all know in Florida, we get both heat and humidity, so we never really truly know what we're going to get on race day, right? So last year it was absolutely gorgeous. It was cool, and it made for a great race, but you just never know what you're going to get here. So what you need to know is that our sweat is made up of both water and electrolytes, sodium and chloride. So sodium and chloride is what makes up salt, are the most abundant electrolytes that we use during running, and what makes the biggest difference in how you feel, that loss of sodium chloride. So when you're sweating, you're losing both fluid and mostly sodium in regards to electrolytes. With hydration, there's really nothing more personalized in sports nutrition than our hydration needs. So, at the end of the day, you're going to need to know how much fluid you're losing per hour and how much sodium you're losing per liter of sweat to really dial in your hydration. As you can see, the average amount of fluid we lose is pretty large in the range. You can lose anywhere from 0.8 to 1.5 liters, and that's just an average. So there are many people who lose much more than that. And then those sodium concentrations, there's a huge range there as well. So you can lose anywhere from 300 to 2,000 milligrams per liter of sweat. So I would say that per liter of sweat, most people lose around, I think the average is like around 900 milligrams of sodium. So if you're losing, so that's just the average. So if you're a heavier sweater, you could potentially be losing up to 3 or 4 liters per hour. And then salty sweaters might lose more like 1,800 to 2,000 milligrams of sodium per liter of sweat. So it's important to remember that even a 2% loss in your body weight can negatively affect your performance. So losing even, when you lose sweat, you lose weight, right? So even a 2% loss after you reach that 2%, that's when you see a decrease in performance. But another thing to remember is that your goal isn't to just replace 100% of what you lose, it's to minimize those losses. And I think that's where people get overwhelmed because they think they need to replace 100% of everything they lose, but that's not always practical to do, and it's not always feasible to do either. So if you really want to dial in your hydration plan, you might want to consider a sweat test and a sweat composition test. So sweat test, you weigh yourself before and after a run to see how much you lose. A sweat composition test you would have to do like Caitlin offers them in her office. So here are just some general recommendations regarding fluids. So you want to go into the race or any race well hydrated. So you can, I always just say monitor the color of your urine and how often you're peeing throughout the day. So if you're going pretty infrequently, then, or your pee is like super dark and low in volume, then you're probably dehydrated and you probably need more fluids. If you're going more than 8 times per day and your urine was very clear, then you're probably overdoing it and you dial back a little bit. So that's just going into the race. Now, what you were mentioning, Dave, is preloading. So you can consider preloading the evening before, and it's probably a good idea to do because we are in Florida. So what this is just taking in a strong electrolyte drink with about 16 ounces of water the night before. So something like an Element would be appropriate here. It has 1,000 milligrams of soda.
Should I be interloading regular water though with Element, or because I
Yeah.
was just drinking
this is-
Element like nonstop, and I just found that I was craving water.
You were just drinking Element nonstop? Yeah, so you definitely need some just straight water as well.
Every other, I guess.
Yeah, I would alternate, not too much. And then the morning of, with your breakfast, you can take in anywhere from 8 to 16 ounces of fluid. You can do it with electrolytes. You want to monitor what the weather is going to be like to know how much you'll probably need.
Get there early to get in line at the porta potty.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then 30 minutes before, you can just take a few swigs of water, about 4 to 8 ounces, or sports drink. And then during races, so in general, you're going to want to take in anywhere from 10 to 24 ounces of fluid per hour. Again, if you do dial in and use your sweat rate, and use those bullet points underneath. So find a product that you like to carry fluid with. I personally like the Nathan handheld, but there's so many different ones. And remember that this should not be done for the first time on race day. That's going to set you up for failure because you're just not used to it. So really experiment with how much fluid works for you and what types of sports drinks you like. Try different brands. Any sloshing or cramping, or if you need to go to the bathroom a lot, then maybe try a different brand or reevaluate your routine. And of course, don't just drink lots of water before the race because that will run the risk of hyponatremia where your sodium levels get super low. And of course, early and often. So start drinking early in the race, and that goes with fueling as well. Start early in the race and take in it early and often throughout the race. So just try to break it up every hour.
Danielle, on the hydration, I'm sorry if I might ask you.
Okay.
I really don't like carrying water with me when I run. I just think it's extra weight.
Yeah.
I hate it.
Yeah.
And I'm not drinking all the time. So but I make sure to drink at least a bit every single time there's water offered. Does that provide enough water that I will need throughout the race, or?
If you're intentional about it, it definitely will. I think the stations are, what do we say, like every 2 miles or something like that?
I guess 2 miles, but it might be even
Yeah,
less.
I have to look. But if you are intentional about it, it can be done. I know that some people will have family members or friends on the course. I can just give them the bottle if they need to just take some and then throw it away. There are ways to do it. Of course, it's going to be easier if you have it on you, but if you're intentional about taking in hydration on the course, then you can do it.
Okay. Right. The other thing in terms of electrolytes, I've been using this hydro fuel, is this thing here, and this one says hydro electrolyte plus fuel, and I don't like chewing it, have it all at once, so I keep it in my mouth and let it slowly dissolve throughout. You know, I think 2 would be enough to go throughout the whole race, the whole half. I think for me, because it goes really slow. Does this provide what I need in terms of electrolytes?
I'm not familiar with that product.
No.
What is it called?
It's called hydro fuel.
Hydro fuel. I tried Googling it. I don't find it.
Those are chewables, chewable gums.
I don't see anything on
No.
chew. I don't know. I can take if you send me like a picture of it or something, I can
Sure.
maybe look at it. I'll go over electrolytes as well.
Okay.
What'd you say? Did you say something?
Hey, question. I noticed you note Osmo up there.
Yeah.
Do you prefer Osmo over LMNT?
No.
Okay. I didn't know if
Whatever
you
works for you. I just found it there.
it has a lot of stuff in it. It looks pretty impressive. I just went and looked it up. I was like,
Oh
wow.
yeah. Yeah. I've never used it myself, but I did find it when I was researching.
Oh, okay.
So, whatever works for you, that's going to be the best.
Whatever works and costs the least.
Yes.
That's a good one.
So
Right.
these are just some signs that you need to either drink more or drink less.
Twitchy.
And then this is the kind of the second part of the hydration question. So electrolytes. This is another thing that's not black and white because it's very individualized. So I just thought this was a nice chart that you can use to help you decide where you lie on, the salty sweater continuum, unless you do like a sweat composition test. And then just like with your carbs, you can meet this in a variety of ways. You can do gels, you can do salt capsules. A lot of drinks have electrolytes in them. So find where you are. If you're runner A, that would mean maybe you just only need 200 milligrams per hour. I would say in Florida, you probably would need a little bit more than that. And then it's just because it's so humid here. And then runner B, 400 to 600, and then runner C, 600 milligrams plus per hour. I know people that take over 1,000 milligrams per hour because that's just what works for them. So
I do.
yeah. So some of us just, even if your sweat composition is average, if you're losing more fluid, then you're going to be losing more salt. So it just really depends on your individual needs. I'm not going to go over this either, but this just goes over a sample runner of like what she was experiencing and what her goals are. And then the next slide, we go over putting it all together, the fuel, the sodium, and fluid, and what she decided to use for everything. So it's something you can kind of look at in your own time if it's helpful. And then post-race. So this is just I know, when we do a big race like that, we're not really focused on recovery at that moment because we're so excited, but I would recommend trying to take in something within 30 to 45 minutes if you can, just to promote recovery. So that means taking in something with carbohydrates and protein quickly after finishing. I don't care too much about a ratio. I see it there, but as long as you're getting in protein, fluids, and carbohydrates, that's all I care about. So some ideas and things that you can take with you and have in the car or wherever. You can do banana, you can do bars, you can do sandwiches. There's a lot of places in Cocoa Village there's a bakery and stuff like that. And you can utilize as well. Fairlife shakes of safety. They're very good. They have a good amount of protein in them. Chocolate milk in general is, I feel like I should be a spokesperson for chocolate milk because it's just the perfect recovery fuel. It has carbs, it has fluid, it has electrolytes, it has protein, it has pretty much everything. So I tend to drink it after every meal. And then have a full meal within 2 to 3 hours post race.
Pancakes.
Pancakes.
That's why I do this, Danielle, to eat pancakes.
Some of us run to eat, some of us eat to run. So.
Danielle, curiosity. I've seen typically we have beer being served after the race. Is it healthy at all, or?
So actually,
I mean, right after a race, you know, it's
yeah,
like the body's craving for anything, and then you get alcohol. So I wonder.
it does have carbs in it, but research does show that alcohol actually delays your recovery. So, is it healthy? Probably not.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love to have a beer.
And you have a beer after,
but
I think that go
totally
ahead and
not
enjoy a beer, but also at the same time have something on the side with it.
Okay.
And help improve your recovery.
I like the Athletic NA. It's really good.
Okay.
Oh, I have that too. Yeah. There's
Um,
no alcohol. Yeah.
So that's pretty much it in terms of before, during, and after your race. Any questions?
This was amazing. Thank you so much.
Like I said, I recorded it, so once, usually I'll get an email with the recording and then I'll send it to Caitlin and she can post it.
I think the hardest thing I'm finding as a whole is the amount of stuff I'm eating. Like, I'm eating more than I've ever eaten in my life, and I'm still not catching up to my nutritional numbers.
Like just during the day?
Yeah, like trying to get I've been really working on protein, which apparently was a big problem for me. And getting protein alone in one day is insane, but it's just like the sodium. I have to build up to it and go through the process.
Yeah. I find that just like your runs and everything, nutrition is almost another full-time job of just ensuring that you're eating enough and getting in everything you need and when you need it. And it's hard to be intentional. It takes a lot of time to, think about
What do you recommend? So like I was talking to Yagan, I guess she found that Costco sells bags of chicken, but what do you keep for protein? Because like I would love like something to make it easier.
I mean, so I do like tuna packets, which are really easy. Eggs. What else?
I'm eating a lot of eggs, like ridiculous amounts of eggs.
I do a lot of Greek yogurt.
Okay.
String cheese is a good option. Nuts. I try to do just have a lot of variety in the diet. I think that's been a big goal of mine, to just include a lot of variety. So I do a lot of.
So you don't try to hit the big 40-gram big hit. You like spread it out over a lot of more like 10, 15s.
Spread it out throughout the day. Yes.
Yeah.
And then spreading it out throughout the day.
Okay. It's a journey.
Yeah. So anything is good.
Okay, thank you, Danielle. I got to run to work, but this was amazing.
Welcome. Any other
Danielle, can I ask one more question? I mean, I think I know the answer, but based on what I've seen, something that I think I've been doing wrong is before very long runs, I've been doing like overnight oats, but I load it with protein powder. And then I have it in the morning. It feels to me good because it fills me up and it gives me the impression that it lasts. So, and I add a banana to it. Okay. But maybe the protein element there is probably not the best. I will probably do better if I keep loading carbs throughout the race.
Yeah, I mean, how do you feel with it? If it's working for you?
It does work. It does work. And another thing that I add is MCT oil. Okay. But lately, I don't know if this MCT, it doesn't I mean, with the texture and everything, that taste of the although it doesn't really have much taste, but I don't know. Lately, it used to work really well for me, and I thought, well, I found my thing for the morning: overnight oats with the protein powder. But
Yeah.
I don't know, and the MCT, but lately, I don't know.
Yeah, I would say for like a long run, when you're thinking about fueling a long run, you don't need a ton of protein. Really, carbohydrates is going to be your main source of energy. If you find that, some people find that they need a little bit of protein just because it helps them not feel hungry during the run.
Mhm.
It helps.
Yeah, that's my case. Yeah.
So, my like low to moderate amounts of protein is okay. You just don't need a ton of protein.
Maybe I'll do half of what I use.
Yeah, so maybe do like half of it.
Mhm.
And see how that feels. It's really just experimenting to find what makes you feel best.
Okay. And the MCT oil for a long run, is it a good idea?
I feel like
I
don't
feel it gives me that energy to start, but I don't know if it's just my mind, but I don't feel it's what lasts. It's just that's the start.
yeah. Again, I don't think you necessarily need it. However, if you find that it makes you feel better and it's working for you, then that's
Mhm.
but I don't think there's any benefit to doing it before. But
Okay. Okay.
that's the basics, I would say.
All right. I'll be looking for the presentation if you could. It's just easier to locate it than the video. Don't need to watch
Oh
the
yeah,
video.
of course, yes.
Yeah, if you could, I appreciate it.
I'll have her send the slides out as well.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you for coming.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.